All right. Well, I think we're going to get going with this webinar from Halifax. And again, I'd like to absolutely welcome everybody who's been able to join us this evening, or perhaps this afternoon, depending how far west you are from Halifax. One of the great things about Halifax is we're always just a little bit ahead of the rest of the country. So except Newfoundland, they get to lead the way. So absolutely welcome. First of all, I'd like just to introduce the folks who are with us here tonight. My name is Fred Valence Jones, and I am the director of journalism here at the University of King's College. Joining me are Tara Wigglesworth-Hines, who is the assistant registrar of admissions. A very important person for you to know. Also joining me is Professor Brian Daly, who is our undergraduate coordinator, and one of our alumni, Stephanie Roberts. She's the director of marketing and communications at the Diversity Institute at Toronto Metropolitan University. And a little later, perhaps Sandra Hannibal will be joining us, and she works as a journalist and digital producer. So I'd like to again welcome absolutely everybody to this webinar. I thought perhaps I would begin just by talking a little bit about our campus here in Halifax, and this building that you're looking at in this slide. This is the Arts and Administration building at King's, and as you can see, it looks very old and very regal. And we're actually just up there under the roof line is where the School of Journalism is located. And this is a really great location. We're just 20 minutes walk from downtown Halifax, so maybe 5 minutes walk. And if you sort of imagine that you are in the position where you're looking at the building, so about where you are is where our library is. We have a library, and then on either side there are residences. We also have a chapel here and a gym where there's a fitness center. So sort of all the essentials are sort of within this quite small area at King's, and we are a very tight-knit community here. And people feel at home really, really quickly. Now, you can see King's in the next picture. You can see King's sort of right up in that upper right-hand corner there. You can see the quad. You can sort of see the buildings. And what this picture is showing more broadly is the Studley campus at Dalhousie, and that's another really great thing about King's. Besides the beautiful view you can see of the Northwest Arm. So while we're small, strictly first name, I must say, at the journalism school, we have an association with Dalhousie and our sister university, and that means that you have access to all of the resources available to students at Dal, and that includes the libraries, the Dalplex Athletic Center, which you can see over on the left-hand side of the picture, just off the left side of the picture there, beyond the athletic field. The International Center, the Accessibility Center, all sorts of services that come with a big sort of university are available to all the students at King's. So that's why I like to say that we're kind of the best of both worlds. We're small, but then we're also big at the same time. Now, being a student in Halifax means that you have access to, of course, a whole world beyond the campus. And if you're a journalism student, one of the things that you'll be doing really quickly is going out and doing interviews in places such as City Hall, the legislature, for example. In fact, anywhere really where news is happening. And Halifax is also a really great place to live. And I've lived here for almost 16 years, and I felt welcome from the minute that I got here. And we have, as you've probably heard, a lively East Coast culture. We have a great sort of nightlife here if you want to get out and enjoy yourself after all the work in boot camp in the Bachelor of Journalism. And in fact, Halifax now has the fastest growing downtown of any of any major city in Canada. And though I think the recent census is showing the numbers of people who are moving from places such as Ontario is sort of at record levels. And I know that one person who's with us tonight who really appreciates our lovely city is Professor Brian Daly. And as I mentioned, he's our undergraduate coordinator. So I'm going to pass things over to Brian now, and he's going to talk in a little more detail about what it's like to be in the Bachelor of Journalism program.
Hey, thanks a lot, Fred. I appreciate that. And it's a pleasure to be here tonight to talk to all of you. I'm speaking to all of you from what we call the TV room. We'll probably rechristen it the video room at some point because terms change. And the TV room is where our video instruction and our video workshops are based. This is a working newsroom. We publish out to YouTube and onto the internet through our journalism school's news website called The Signal. So this BJ program is ultimately a way to get you to the workforce quickly. You're only spending a year here on campus, and it's a very intense year. I'm one of the first people who you'll see, because for the first, if you decide to join us here at King's, because for the first 8 weeks of the BJ, you would be doing what we call the boot camp. The boot camp is a way to get you introduced on a foundational level to many of the different aspects of journalism that you'll need to get ready for the professional environment. So it's 4 courses taken over the first 8 weeks of the fall semester. You'll be learning research and writing, audio. You can choose to do audio or video. We have a professional studio here in the basement of the Arts and Administration building at King's, just down the hall from where I am. Here in the television lab, you're working with professionals to produce newscasts, weekly newscasts, if you choose to do that. We also teach you about reporting and ethics as well. Once you've completed those 8 weeks, and you can see here that includes our time potentially in the studio here to produce podcasts. Once you've completed those 8 weeks, you then move into 3 consecutive 6-week workshops, an array of different options for you. As of this year, everybody will do what we call the news workshop. That's a digital newsroom, a functional digital newsroom, in which, under the guidance of our professors here, you would be essentially the publishers of the Signal. You would be the ones not only going out and reporting and putting together stories and getting photographs, but you would also be involved in the layout and the publishing involved in the Signal. And this is an outward-facing site. It's the real deal. Just 8 weeks in, some of you would be starting to do that. Certainly one of your first 3 workshops would be that. Then you get to choose 2 other workshops from among audio, where you'd be producing a weekly podcast on the local community station, Dalhousie's community station, CKDU. You can also choose to do video workshop with me, where from right here in this room, you'd be producing weekly YouTube newscasts. You'd be learning how to use professional camera equipment. You'd be working on Adobe Premiere, the industry standard editing software. You also would have a chance, for those of you who are interested in becoming authors and writing a book, no better place to do that than with David Swick, who leads our creative nonfiction workshop. Get an introduction to the publishing industry, working on long form writing for those of you who are interested in writing. And then for those of you who are interested in taking your audio, podcasting skills and your video skills to the next level, we offer as well here at King's advanced audio workshop, where you're working on a documentary. So for 6 weeks, you're working on one long form audio piece, one long form podcast item. And many of you, of course, I'm sure follow podcasts and might be eager to get into that. You can also do advanced video with Trina Roche, my colleague here. There you'd be spending 6 weeks working on a documentary. And all of this material, by the way, is presented to the public in different forms. For example, the video documentaries are screened at film festivals. So in your year here at King's, we're getting you ready by getting you actually publishing and working as a journalist, 6-week workshops each. Then as you, oh yes, you asked, this is a question from Ariel, which I can answer, which is, do you need prior audio or video experience to sign up for the advanced workshops? The answer is no. We have Pauline Dakin, who is a Michener Award winning radio journalist who leads advanced audio. For advanced audio and advanced video, you are able to come in and go straight to long form journalism. The way we have it set up right now is that we do not require that you do the audio and video before moving on to the advanced, because it is two different types of journalism, right? Audio and video journalism, you're producing weekly newscasts or weekly podcasts. Then in the advanced audio and video, you'd be producing a documentary. After these 3 workshops are complete, you have to think about where you would want to work, and the internship program is the best way, I think, to get that done. That's how I got into the industry, was working as an intern while I was still studying journalism. So the internships can be in any number of places that you could, if you want to work at a large news organization such as the CBC or CTV, Globe and Mail, you can do that. But you can also work in smaller publications. A number of our students prefer to work in smaller newsrooms and smaller offices where there's a more intimate relationship professionally with the editors, and it's a much more hands-on situation there. So we have people who've worked for trade publications, people who've worked for publishing companies, those who really want to be authors and know how the publishing industry works from the inside out. We've had interns who have gone on to publishing companies. We've had interns who've worked in podcast production companies. I recall one intern last year went out to Vancouver to work for a podcast production company. So the way the internship works is you work in conjunction with us here on faculty to decide where you might want to go. And then we facilitate that. The head of our internship program has a lot of contacts in the industry, as do all of us on faculty. And so we work with you to find a place that's the right fit for you. And there's no better way to get into the industry than to start out as an intern. And then, of course, everything ends with crossing that stage and getting that Bachelor of Journalism from King's. Fred, I'll throw it back to you.
Thanks, Brian. That's great. And yeah, I want to sign up. Unfortunately, I have to work here instead. So, but that's great too. So I think it's always great to hear from a prof. But equally importantly, I think it's great to hear from somebody who's actually been through the program. And so joining us is Stephanie Roberts. And she graduated from the BJ in 2002. 2002, and before returning to take the MJ a couple of years back. And so there's too many twos there. That's the problem. Anyway, so Stephanie, do you want to maybe just to tell us a little bit more about sort of what you're doing and your background, and a little bit about your experience in the Bachelor of Journalism?
Absolutely. Thanks, Fred. Hi, everyone. Very, very happy to be here and be championing the Bachelor of Journalism program, and indeed just the journalism school at the University of King's College. As Fred said, I am a graduate starting in 2002 when I did the one-year Bachelor of Journalism, which was transformative for me in terms of my profession and in terms of what I went out to do. I did work briefly in journalism before moving into communications, but everything that I learned and did in being trained as a journalist and working for a short time as a journalist has informed my communications career. I would absolutely not be where I am without it. So I did work in communications in a research institute at a hospital for 16 years, leading a team there. And then I returned to King's, keeps pulling me back, to do the Master of Journalism in 2022, graduated in 2022, before taking on the position I'm now in, which is Director of Marketing Communication at the Diversity Institute, as you can see on the slide. And what we do at the Diversity Institute is make the case that diversity and inclusion is not just good for people, it is not just good for society, but it is actually good for business and workplaces. In terms of the program, there is so much I can say about it. I almost don't know where to start, and so I would welcome any questions that you have, but maybe because I don't work in journalism, I can talk a little bit more about how it has informed what I do in communications, because maybe all of you are hoping to go into journalism, and I absolutely would say do it. It's a wonderful career. If I had my druthers, quite honestly, that's probably where I would be now. Life looked a little differently for me, or worked out a little bit differently, but there's so much that you can learn as a journalist that will apply to a career in communications, a creative career in communications. So I can stop there, I can continue, take direction.
Absolutely. No, Telly, can you talk a little bit more about the sort of the experience in the school itself and what it's like to be here?
Yeah. So I'll tell you what I really loved about the one-year program and why I chose it, because of course there are options. You look across what appeals. And I should also say that I'm not from Halifax and I don't live in Nova Scotia. So this was a decision to move from my home province of Ontario to Halifax specifically for the King's program. And I chose it because it is applied, it is very focused, it is intense in all the right ways. So you're being trained to work as a journalist from day one. There's not a lot of theory. Obviously, there's talk about like why it matters and ethics and all of that. But again, ethics is day-to-day journalism. So I really loved that applied focus and that intensity. The faculty, I can tell you that the faculty relationships that I had were truly outstanding, both from a professional point of view. So these are some of the very top journalists working in their fields, in their areas of expertise, but also just in terms of the support. So it really was a very close-knit, it is a very close-knit community. And there's a sense that whatever you need, someone is there for you. You are not, this number or a face within, many faces, dozens or hundreds. You are a name, they're a name, and you can go to them, and that close-knit support was extraordinary. And just by way of comparison, I also have an undergrad degree in science from the University of Toronto, and very proud of being a U of T alum, but I can tell you night and day in terms of the experience, the community, the close-knit, the support, all of that was fantastic. And, and then what you learned, like this is hands-on stuff. So I learned all of these things, how to do them myself from the beginning. You're not learning theoretically how one should do them or might do them. You're not writing a thesis about it. It was an intense experience, but intense in all the right ways.
Wonderful. All right, great. Thank you. Thank you, Stephanie. I just wanted to mention that welcome Sarah Jane Blankhorn, who has joined us along the way here. I'm going to introduce one more of my colleagues, and that's Tara Wigglesworth-Hines from the Registrar's Office. And if you are going to apply to join us here at King's, you're going to become really good friends with Tara. So I'm going to turn things over to Tara, who has some thoughts on what it will take for you to actually join us here, and a little bit, I think, in terms of scholarships as well. Tara.
Thanks, Fred. And thank you, everyone, for joining us tonight or today. We don't have slides for this particular part of the presentation, but we're going to go right to the website, which I think is important as you're navigating this process. And our role in the admissions office is trying to make this application process as seamless as possible. So we're here to help in any way throughout the next couple of months. So applications actually opened on October 15th, so they have been open for a couple of months. But I do want to reassure you that most applications for this program come in after the holiday season. So you are not late in applying, and there's still room in the program. So if you're considering applying, I would encourage you to do so as soon as possible. And I say as soon as possible because we have an early deadline of February 15th. And that deadline is early because it's also our scholarship application deadline. So if you're interested in applying for scholarships, we encourage you to get your admission application and supporting documents in by that deadline as well, in addition to the scholarship application that I will talk about in a few moments. If you're not interested in applying in the next few weeks, we do have a couple other later deadlines. For international students, our final deadline is April 1st. Now, it still is quite early, but we have an early deadline because it does take time for international students to apply for their study permits. It can take months. So it's important for international students, if you're thinking of coming to King's for this program, to apply sooner rather than later. And I would even encourage before the April 1st final deadline. And then for our domestic students, we have a much later deadline of June 1st. Now, keep in mind, this program is limited enrollment. We have approximately 15 spots a year. The sooner you can get your application in, the better advantage you have through the application process. The next piece, I'm going to talk about admission procedures and kind of what you need to do and what supporting documents you need to have to apply to this program. We're looking for an applicant who has a 3- or 4-year undergraduate degree from an accredited institution. So yes, we will accept 3-year programs, bachelor's degree, and we're looking at approximately a B average. When we calculate that average, I do want to highlight that we look at the last 60 credit hours of your program. So we don't take your cumulative average, we actually take the last 60 credit hours from your undergraduate degree. So I think that is usually very helpful as students are worrying about the GPA requirement. So we need a number of things for you to apply to King's in this program. First is the main admissions application. And you can access the application on this page, and we encourage the online application. And it's quite a simple process, but again, sometimes what I think as simple could be confusing to students. We do share an application portal with Dalhousie. So if you become stuck or you have questions as you're going through the application, please feel free to reach out to us. And I'm sure we can answer your questions quite quickly. The application fee for the BJ program is $70, whether you're a domestic student or an international student. And I will also come back to some of those questions that people are asking as well. So I'll make sure those are answered throughout the webinar. We also require official transcripts. So if you apply to the BJ program, we do require official transcripts that come directly from your institution, your home institution. So we do accept digital transcripts or paper transcripts. Most institutions now are providing digital copies, but we can't accept copies that you have on file or in your possession. They have to come from the institution itself. In addition to the transcripts and the application fee, we would like to see a personal statement, so a letter of intent. And usually it's approximately around 1,000 words, and it outlines why you want to study journalism, not necessarily why you want to be a journalist, because that's not always the case, as Stephanie has mentioned. Your academic strengths, weaknesses, your general interests, and any work you've done in journalism or related fields. Journalism is all about storytelling, so we want a well-rounded story about you. In addition to the personal statement, we're looking for one reference letter. Most students who apply to this program are coming from recent undergraduate studies, but that's not always the case. But if you've graduated or are currently in school within the past 3 years, we require an academic reference. They can send it again right to our admissions email, but it has to come from the referee and not you. And for anybody who has studied kind of past the 3-year mark, we're looking for a relevant professional reference. And 2 other pieces for the application. We recommend, if you have one, to provide a portfolio of work, so selected samples of published articles and media files. If you don't have one, we understand, it's only recommended, and a resume is optional. So there's more information on how you can provide, send those documents in on this page. For any students where English is not your first language, we do require an English language proficiency test. And these are the tests we accept, and we don't accept any others outside this chart. And we possibly may waive the English language proficiency requirement if you studied at an institution in English in a country where English is a primary language. But we would decide that on a case-by-case basis and at the time of application. And I think it's important to let you know that we do rolling admissions, so we don't necessarily wait till the early deadline of February 15th. We do meet as a committee as applications come in batches. So we don't assess individual applications one at a time, but we do meet as a committee on a rolling basis throughout the term. And so we do have some major awards for the 1-year program. And as you can see, this is the website where you can find the information. We've created a chart this year to hopefully make the information more accessible to you as an applicant. And each award, when you click on the arrow, opens up a chart that talks about the criteria, the annual value, how many are available, the deadline. If it requires a scholarship application, it will link to the scholarship application, as well as maybe any information on previous award winners at the bottom. So you can go through these charts and determine if you would like to, if you meet the criteria and if you like to apply to any, and then you would submit that individual application by February 15th. Maybe we could open up what the application looks like, Ilana, just so they can get an idea. Oh, it's in the chart. Yeah, it just picks that right there. So it just opens up a PDF application. It's all standard. It's one application. You can click multiple awards if you want to be considered for the award. And then there's information where you put your personal information and a place at the bottom where you can just freely type why you think you're a good candidate for the award. So it's important to take a look at the award criteria and make sure you tell us why you think you're a good candidate for that award or multiple awards. And I think that's out. There are a few questions that came through. Do you accept mature students who have graduate level qualification from Dalhousie? Of course we do. And let's see. I don't know if I've missed anything here.
There's one more. There's one more. I want to apply immediately, Eunice asks. Would it help if I did a master's program at Dalhousie?
Oh, would it help to do a master's program at Dalhousie before the Bachelor of Journalism? Is that what it's asking? It's not necessary if that's what you're asking, Eunice. The undergraduate degree is what we're looking for this program.
All right, that's great.
Yeah. But I am here to answer any questions today, or you can reach me through the admissions office at King's. Thanks, Fred.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you very much, Tara. Why don't we just throw it open? I think everybody should be able to ask questions on mic here, if you'd like. We'd love to hear any questions that you have.
There is a question from earlier that might be for Stephanie, which was, what was it like returning to King's at a later date to get an additional degree? That's coming from an alumni looking to return as well.
Yeah, thanks. I can elaborate a bit. It was a great experience. I knew exactly what I was getting. I knew what King's was all about. So in that way, I guess I had an advantage. But there was something I had wanted to say a bit earlier that I just want to highlight here, and the internship program. It really was a great program. Through the internship program, I got the opportunity to work at the Chronicle Herald, which is I think still major print publication in Halifax, a time that I absolutely loved. And on the basis of that, I was fortunate enough to be offered a job after I graduated. So, when you talk about it being an applied program, when you talk about it setting you up to work as a journalist, I think that's a very good example of how it did that for me.
All right, so that's great. Thanks, Stephanie. I apparently was in error there. You can't apparently go on mic, but you can continue to ask questions in the chat. And I think we have a question here. Is there somewhere to check out the podcast documentaries that have been made through the workshops? Are they on the Signal website? So I'll let Brian answer that one.
Yes, I did put a link in there to our podcasts and newscasts, but in terms of the documentaries, they're actually reserved for festivals and awards. So we don't make them available to the public, but rather they're produced at such a high level that we tend to reserve them for film festivals. For example, at the last Atlantic Film Festival, a documentary produced here at King's was screened. We also have students who, well, goodness, we had one student last year who had several audio documentaries picked up by Atlantic Voice. Atlantic Voice is the main audio documentary program for the East Coast at the CBC, and that student has gone on now to get hired at the CBC. So certainly there's a strong relationship between King's and a lot of the news organizations in the country.
No, and that's one of the great things about King's, is that we, and I think Brian would agree with this. I mean, all the people you will work with here, they are people who sometimes continue to work in the industry. Brian, for example, continues to work over here at Global in Halifax, and other people on our faculty are the same. Pauline Dakin, for example, who does the audio and podcast instruction, continues to work at the CBC. So the people are bringing up-to-date experience with working in journalism to the classroom. A question here: can you do an internship that's outside of Halifax? Absolutely, you can do an internship anywhere in Canada. But we have Tara Tailleur, Professor Tara Tailleur is our internship coordinator. And you could certainly even contact her in advance if you wanted to talk to her. But yes, the internship is arranged, and then you then head to that location. We even knew this year we have some assistance for people who might have trouble affording getting to a location that where they they don't live or don't have parents or whatever. A bursary program, and so that's kind of exciting as well. The internships really are at the center of what we do here in King's Journalism. Question from Anna: I'm based in Toronto, and I work with the media consistently based on my PR background. Was wondering if we can continue the internship where we reside. So if you're asking, can you do the internship where you live? Yes, absolutely, you can do that. And that's often a great way to not have to pay for accommodations or anything. If you can stay somewhere or you already have a place. So absolutely, there's really no limitation on certainly in Canada where you can do your internship. I think some people have done them in the United States as well. And are students allowed to work for non-English media? Now, that's a very specific internship question. I would think yes, but I'm going to Tara Tyre, her email is, Brian, did you want to jump in there?
Well, I just know that we had a student last year who was from Quebec, and she did an internship at Radio Canada, the French CBC.
That's true.
So there is a precedent for that.
Absolutely, yeah. I wasn't even thinking of French, oddly. I was thinking of some other language, of course, in Canada. Yeah, absolutely. And but if you really wanted to get really dive deep into questions about the internship, Tara Tyre, TERRA TAILLEUR at ukings.ca. I think Brian's typing it into the chat. And absolutely feel free to contact Tara, and she is our internship impresario, and we'll be able to guide you in whatever you'd like to ask. And a question here, question for Tara in terms of transcripts and English language requirements. Did you want to jump on that?
Of course. Yeah, so even if you have a graduate degree, we need all transcripts from all institutions. So it's important that if you do have an undergraduate degree and a graduate degree, that we receive transcripts from both institutions. But transcripts are quite accessible now, where you can request them through email or other forms at most institutions. So I have no doubt that you would be able to access an MSBU transcript quite easily and have it sent to us without you, with just sending an email or some similar mode of communication. With regards to Dalhousie, you actually don't have to request a transcript from Dal. We will access those transcripts directly because of our association. So I hope that answers your question. I should also mention, for any students during their academic studies who attended another institution on letter of permission, or even just took a course here and there from an institution, you still have to get the original transcript from those institutions. Even if they're mentioned on your transcript as transfer credits, we won't accept it. We need them from the home institution. So just keep that in mind as well.
Now you can see why Tara is going to be your friend, because she has all the answers to these very specific questions, and they can get quite intricate sometimes depending on the situation.
I see another question, Fred. Sorry, Eunice, I didn't catch that. Your Kenyan transcripts, we do need them. We do need your official transcripts, and I know that makes things difficult when you're not living in your home country, but I would contact them sooner rather than later to see what options you do have. Now, I guess my question is, and we can talk about this later, for anybody who has questions about the webinar or admissions, you can reach out to me at admissions@ukings.ca. But Eunice, if you provided your Kenyan transcript to Dal at some point, I might be able to access them. I'm not 100% positive, but I can check that out.
All right. We still certainly have a little bit of time if there are any further questions. We've been on here for about 45 minutes. Just watching the chat here to see if there's any other questions that will pop in. And that's one of the great things about doing one of these things, is we get to answer your questions directly on the spot. And no waiting for someone to call you back or find your email. We just get you the answer right here. And so I don't know whether we have come close to exhausting the questions from this group. But one thing I know absolutely that happens to me whenever I attend a meeting or webinar or anything where there are questions to be asked is the most important question I could have asked occurs to me after just after I've gone off the call. 5 minutes later, or left the meeting, and then I realized we do have another question. Do you think the course load is manageable for someone who keeps their full-time job? And Brian, do you want to jump in on that one?
It's not unprecedented, but it would be very difficult. I mean, certainly we do have students who work. One of the things you have to think about for the BJ is that it is more intense than any of the other programs in terms of number of hours. For example, we mentioned that there are 3 consecutive 6-week workshops. Well, a workshop at King's is a full-time job. So, you know, for example, right now there is somebody in the lab outside a camera range working diligently on the video piece they're going to be working on for this week. And this lab has students all hours of the night. When I taught video workshop, and it would be the same this term, there might be students here from 8 in the morning until 8 at night. Some students were able to juggle a job with that, but certainly it would be easier if, let's say, you had part-time employment.
Yeah, it's definitely a very intense program. The advantage, of course, is that you arrive in September, and then in April you do your internship, and then away you go to whatever you're going to do after. So you get an undergraduate degree very quickly. We have another question for Tara, I think.
Yeah. Hi, Eunice. Great question. Let's talk about your transcripts from Kenya. Hopefully we can access them through your previous application from Dal. But to answer your question is, yes, you can definitely submit a scholarship application before you have a decision for your Bachelor of Journalism 1-year program. So the answer is yes, you can apply for scholarships ahead of time.
And Fred, did we talk about the transferability of the skills that we teach in the BJ? Transferability certainly is something that Stephanie talked about, given that she's in communications.
Absolutely,
but some other
absolutely. Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I mean, you could speak to that. I could speak to that. I mean, we could all speak to that. I was just yesterday talking about one of our grads who last year, and I've been about 3 in the last 3 years, applied to law school. It's a great start for that. But you know, any kind of job where you need to obtain information, synthesize information, communicate clearly and quickly, and do research. The journalism degree is an absolutely fantastic base for that. So certainly, we'd love to see you out there, you know, on the news or in the the bylines or online. But we'd also love to see you out there doing PR, and we'd love to see you out there working in NGOs and nonprofits and doing so many different things that you can do with a journalism degree. It's a very practical degree for all kinds of things that you can do in the world. I would say it's probably one of the most transferable degree in terms of the skills you learn here. That's a really good point.
Yeah, we're teaching you public speaking and performance, especially in our broadcasting courses, on-camera presentation. Certainly writing is the foundation, the bedrock of what we do at King's, and those skills are certainly transferable to, of course, communications. For example, we have a recent graduate who works in the public sector for the government of Canada. We have a young lady a young woman who will be graduating this school year, who already has a job lined up with Pinterest. So people who go into marketing certainly find these skills useful because of the, among other things, writing and video production skills that we teach you.
Yeah, no, it's pretty much you can do almost anything with a journalism degree. Are there any other questions? Hang on, yes, we do. So Ariel asks, I understand it's a bachelor, but given the fact it requires an undergraduate degree, is it technically considered a graduate program? We tend to describe it as a postgraduate baccalaureate degree. So the idea is that our but our 4-year Bachelor of Journalism honors program, you do that over that 4-year period coming out of high school, usually. And so the idea of this program is that we compress the journalism part into 1 year. So the idea is that you've already got those other skills, that important knowledge that you from the rest of your degree, whether it was political science degree or an English degree or sociology, history, whatever it was you did. And you would do those things as part of the 4-year journalism degree. You would take a selection of courses at Dalhousie as well as at King's. So we say, well, you've already got that. So now we're just going to teach you the journalism part in a really intensive program. So it is considered, Tara, correct me if I'm wrong here, it is still considered a bachelor's degree, as opposed to our Master of Journalism degree, which is 2 years, which then of course is a master's level credential.
Yes, you are graduating with a bachelor's degree. Mm-hmm.
If you're interested in seeing profiles of King's graduates and explore their unique profiles, that's a question from, that's actually a statement, a comment from Yolana, who's been running in the show in the background here. So you can see the profiles on the webpage at ukings.ca/stories. And here another question. I have an MA in a different academic study. Would that be considered along with my BA in terms of admission, Tara?
Thanks, Amy. We typically use your undergraduate coursework to assess you for the program, but because it's a committee-based decision and we look at everything, we would take the MA into consideration. But typically your undergraduate coursework is what we use to calculate a GPA. But saying that, everything that's in your supporting package would be considered upon review.
Great question.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So we're approaching the 1 hour mark. Well, I guess we started about 3 or 4 minutes past the top of the hour. Are there any other questions tonight? Or people may, are coming up to the supper hour in Toronto. And if you're even further west, it's heading towards that time. If one last call out for any further questions, perhaps. All right. So it looks like mostly people are saying thank you, and I think that's what we would all like to say as well. I would absolutely like to say thank you very much for giving us a little bit of your time this evening. We know, as they say, we know how valuable your time is, and the fact that you've spent some time with us this afternoon and this evening is that's really great, and we appreciate that very much. And I guess the one thing I would say is I hope that I'm going to get to meet some of you in person next fall and in the BJ program. So I think with that, we'll probably wrap it up. And thanks to Yolana in the background who's made this whole thing run. And thank you to everybody who has joined us tonight, to Amy and Anna and Ariel and Eunice and Sarah Jane. And to all of our guests tonight, Stephanie especially, thank you for joining us, Brian and Tara. And we'll probably say we have a wrap on that one, but hope we'll be seeing you again soon.